welcome to my channel. I am 9 days postpartum from C-section number 4. So we are here with my son, Hunter, who is 9 days old. And I wanted to share a little bit about what to expect when you have a C-section. Since I've had 4 of them, I feel like I'm a little more experienced than most moms, especially when it comes to C-section and postpartum and healing and recovery. If you're here because you're pregnant or if you're in your 3rd trimester, then welcome. I have a bunch of videos about pregnancy and prepping for baby, postpartum experience, birth vlog of baby number 3, and all sorts of videos like that already up on my channel, as well as videos that are coming for in the next couple months as we're going through postpartum and maternity leave with my son. If those are the types of videos that you like to watch, then I hope that you stick around and subscribe. One of the good things about having a C-section is that you have the date scheduled on your calendar and you know it ahead of time, and the only way that it changes is if you go into labor early. That wasn't the case for me. With my first, I did have to go into the hospital at 38 weeks. We tried to be induced for 2 days and ended up with a planned, not an emergency, but not a planned C-section. And then ever since then, instead of opting for like a VBAC or anything, I went with scheduled C-sections. And so it was very nice knowing that I had the day on the calendar that I could plan for daycare for my older children and have family in town for the birth and be able to plan ahead on that. The first thing you have to prepare for on the actual day of the C-section is you're not allowed to eat after midnight the night before. So that's no food, no water, no Tums, no nothing after midnight. And that was the hardest for me because the heartburn has been so bad this pregnancy, popping Tums like crazy, and so not being able to have any of that was definitely a challenge. Then you go in, you get all set up in your gown, they put the IV in, and then you're waiting for the doctor and the anesthesiologist and everyone to get all set up, and they give you this little cup, and it's not very much, it's literally the size of like a shot that you would take when you're in college, but it's like an antacid that they take that helps right before you go into the operating room, but it tastes so bad. It tastes like sour grape. And I don't know if they do that on purpose, and I swear I blocked this out on all my previous C-sections. I do not remember taking this, but apparently I obviously took it every time. But that is very unpleasant, and you can't drink anything to wash it down, so you're stuck with this like sour taste in your mouth. Getting the spinal, again, I kind of block it out every single time, and I wanted to make this video as soon as possible so everything was still fresh in my mind, but even 9 days later I don't remember exactly how it went. What you do is you sit on the edge of the bed and they have you hug a pillow, so you're kind of like curled over, which is kind of funny when you have like your pregnant belly and you're like curled over. So they numb you with like a topical lidocaine like you would get at the dentist, and so you feel that pinch and then it feels very warm, and then the actual spinal needle and whatever medication they use for that, you don't feel that, but as soon as it happens they immediately lay you down onto the bed and get your legs up and get you all strapped in, and you start going numb, you know, within 10 seconds of that first initial pinch. And there's definitely a lot of activity in the OR while you're there. There's a lot of people that are in the room with you. They all obviously have a purpose, and some of them are there the whole time, some of them come and go, and there's just a lot of people in the room. And it took 4 people just to move you from the operating table onto the gurney, the little wheeled recovery bed that they move you to the recovery room on. And that's kind of funny because you're completely numb. They like flip you on your side, put a board underneath you, flip you back, slide you over to the other bed, and then flip you over again, remove the board, and then like flip you back. But it takes 4 people to slide you. And as they're coming and going, they'll stop by you and say like, congratulations, or good job, or have a good day, whatever it may be. And that's nice that they like check in with you to be like, hey, I was in this room with you. But a lot of the times I'm just like, thank you. And then I'm like, who are you? I have no idea. You're saying congratulations, but I don't even know what you were doing. Like, are you my doctor? Like, you're not my doctor. Are you the baby's doctor? Are you a nurse? Are you a tech? Who are you? Here is what I counted on my last C-section, all the people who are in the room. So there's 2 surgeons. There's my OB plus another surgeon. It happened to be the same surgeon all 4 C-sections, which is kind of funny. We have the 2 surgeons, we have an anesthesiologist, there are 2 people for the baby, there's the neonatologist doctor, as well as there's a nurse, and so they're kind of staying off to the side until the baby's born. You have 1 or 2 nurses for you. This time I had 2 because one of them was in training. And then there's also like a scrub nurse or like a surgical tech. I'm not exactly sure what they were, but they're the ones who like stay in the OR and they're like setting up the instruments, counting the instruments, like making sure they have everything for the surgery. I also had a student doctor there who was there to observe, and they asked me if that was okay, and I said that that was fine, but that was just an additional person that was over there. So that's like 8 or 9 different people, plus my husband was there as well, so it just was very crowded at different times. So there's a lot of kind of hurry up and wait moments in it where you're walking into the operating room and you sit down and you're waiting for the anesthesiologist to come, and then he'll come and give you your spinal, and then it's quick, move your feet, lay down, take this arm, put this drape up, you do this, and then you're waiting for the surgeon to get there, and then the surgeon gets there and gets set up, and then they're coming and they're moving the lights and they're doing this and this and this, and then you're waiting, and then your husband comes in and he sits down and he gets set up, and then it's kind of quiet for a little bit. Then when the baby comes, there's more excitement as the nurses are checking on him and they're coming and going and telling you congratulations and handing you the baby and taking your pictures, and so there's a lot of like calm moments in the surgery, and then there's a lot of like busy moments in the surgery. Now, having had 4 C-sections, I can confirm that every C-section is different and every surgery is different. And I've had some where the surgery was hard and then the recovery was easy, or the surgery was easy but the recovery was harder. This one I felt was the hardest surgery. I felt a lot more of the like pressure and the movement that you feel. You don't feel pain, but there is definitely pressure and movement, and your body is moving and you can feel that on your belly, which is just a little bit unnerving, a little uncomfortable, and you're just kind of, that's definitely the hard part of the surgery, is right before the baby comes out. The baby actually comes out about 10 minutes into the procedure, and then you have 30 minutes after. So it's nice that during that longer part of the surgery, after the baby's there, you're not focused so much on what exactly is happening below the drape. You do feel things, you do smell things, you can smell your skin being cauterized. So you know stuff is happening to your body even if you can't feel it. So the baby is born pretty early throughout the procedure, like 10 minutes in, maybe 15 minutes in. There's the crying and there's the cheering, and there's, you know, the nurses are coming over and checking out the baby, and it's a wonderful moment. So dad still gets to cut the cord. He does not get to cut the cord from your body. It's a sterile environment, so the doctor cuts it. You can do the delayed cord clamping and you can wait for it to go white or whatever it may be. They still have those same processes even with the C-section, but they clamp it off and bring the baby over to the warmer on the side, and then from there the dad gets to cut the umbilical cord short, where they put the little clamp on and cut it short. So he still has that same experience that you would with a a vaginal birth. And then they get the baby all checked out and they wrap them all up and bring them over to you. And so you and your husband hang out with the baby for the rest of the procedure, which is maybe like 40 minutes, 45 minutes while they're getting you all sutured up and cleaned up down there. So it's nice that you get to just hang out with the baby while the long part of the procedure is going on, and it goes by so fast. So this was definitely my hardest surgery. I would have said C-section number 3 was the hardest, but because I ended up throwing up during that surgery, I threw up that sour grape thing. And this time I didn't, but I just felt it was harder because of I could feel the movement a lot more. However, I feel like my recovery in the recovery room and my feeling and my movement coming back in my legs happened a lot faster with this one. I feel like in the past it's taken a couple hours for that numbness to wear off and for me to be able to move my feet. And then when you move from the recovery room into the mother-baby unit, you have to move yourself from the recovery room bed to the mother-baby room bed. So you literally, you know, they sit you up and you have to like scooch yourself from one side, from bed to bed, and they won't let you move to the next stage of recovery until you're able to do that and you have the feeling come back. So it was nice that this one came back a lot quicker, probably because maybe my spinal wasn't as strong, which is why I felt so much more during the surgery. Because other times when I felt like nothing during the surgery, it took a lot longer for it to get out of my system. Like they put more medication in or whatever it may be. So it just goes to show that every surgery is different, every C-section is different, but the general steps are the same. So one thing that was hard to get used to when you're in the recovery room is there's a lot of monitors and beeping and cords and things going on. And that's understandable because you just had surgery and you obviously have your IV on, but they also have the blood pressure cuff. They have these things that go on your legs to prevent blood clots. And so they're squeezing your legs intermittently there. They put the belly binder on to help support your abdomen. And so that's on there. That's super tight. And they also put the pulse ox to test your oxygen level. They put that on my toe. So it wasn't like in with my hands as I'm trying to hold the baby, but it was just like another cord that we had to deal with, as well as I got an ECG. So there's 3 different, I think it was 1, 2, and then 1 down here for like 10 minutes to like check my heart, I guess. I don't remember that with other C-sections, but there's just more cords, more things. When you move, they like get popped off. So the nurse is coming back to get him hooked back up again. So it was quite a lot of that going on until you get to mother baby, and then they kind of, you have less of those cords. But it is a little overwhelming right at the end, especially as you're trying to hold your baby, to deal with all of these cords and things. So once you are in the recovery room, you're in just like a temporary room for like I said, a couple hours before you move into the mother-baby unit. I'm getting hungry. I'm, want to eat something. I want to drink something because it's been like 12 hours since midnight last night that I haven't had anything to eat or drink. I wasn't able to eat for about 12 hours after my surgery, which would have been 24 hours since the last time I ate something. So that was hard. They start you off with clear liquids only. So you do get to drink water. You do get to have ice. They had little pebble ice, which was really nice to be able to kind of chew on that, suck on that. They gave you juices like apple juice. You could do Jello. And they only had the orange Jello. They wouldn't give you red. You could do like broth. They had like a bone broth or like a chicken broth that you could have like warmed if you wanted something like that. And then once you were able to do that, then they bumped you up to like graham crackers, small little things. And once they knew that you were able to tolerate that stuff, then they were able to take off all the restrictions on your diet. For pain medication, you actually get, since you're still hooked up to the IV for a while, even while you're in the mother and baby room, they give you your pain medications through your IV. So they hook it up to your IV and it goes in which is really nice because then you get the good stuff, but they still can only give it to you in the usual dosing intervals. So you would only get it every 6 hours or every 8 hours, depending on like what the medication was. And then once they took the IV out after a day, then you would start taking the oral medication, like the pills. So speaking of pain meds, they definitely keep you on a pain med schedule. Some of them are every 8 hours, some of them are every 6 hours. And then there's an additional narcotic, which you could take as needed if the pain kind of spikes up in between that schedule. And the nurses did a really great job of keeping me on that schedule, where they would come in when it was time for another dose and bring it to me. So I wouldn't have to keep track of that on my own, or which one did I take? Which one do I need to take? When's my next one? And while that is so good that they were able to do that, because it does keep your pain level a very consistent level, you know, if your pain gets too bad, it's really hard to kind of bring it back down again. So it's really nice to stay on that schedule, but it is frustrating when it's the middle of the night and you're trying to sleep, and then the nurses come in and they're like, oh, it's time for your pain meds, and you have to wake up and sit up and drink the water and get interrupted. It was hard that they would have to wake you up, but it was nice that they would keep you within 30 minutes of that like schedule and doing alternating. I think you had like 600 milligrams of ibuprofen, and then they gave you Tylenol, and then I got Norco as like the narcotic if I needed something that was stronger in between. So after surgery, once you're in mother baby, I did not leave that bed for 12 hours. So right after surgery was maybe like, he was born at 12:41 p.m. This is the middle of the night. It's like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. He's asleep, my husband's asleep, the nurse is coming in and she's having me get out of bed and start moving because it's been 12 hours. And honestly, I was very grateful for it, because it did give my butt a break from having to sit in that bed for so long. My butt's like falling asleep. So I wrote down that I got out of bed for the first time and I just did a circle around the room 12 hours after surgery, and literally went like right back into the bed. I was out of bed for 3 minutes, still had my catheter in, still had my IV in, and was wheeling around with me. But she was able to just get cleaned up, take little things off my legs temporarily. Oh my goodness. And move around. When I went back down, I still had to put those itchy things on my legs, which I hate. That's my least favorite part. That was the first time I was actually able to move around after surgery. So I know that those little leg squeezy things, they're literally life-saving because they prevent you from getting blood clots, and they squeeze your legs to keep the circulation going, but you get hot, you get sweaty. Since they're constantly squeezing, they're making noise, they're bothering you, you're laying there and it'll squeeze and you're just, can't sleep through it. Oh my gosh, it's like such a relief when you finally get those taken off and you're able to move about a lot more easily without them. But it is important to stay on a pain med schedule, because especially once you start walking around and getting up and moving around, by the time you start going to the bathroom on your own and sitting up and nursing more often, the pain does start to creep up a little bit. Right after waking up from being asleep where I was not moving and everything was calm and quiet, on a scale of 1 to 10, the pain would be pretty consistently at like a 4. It would be sore, I would notice it, but it wasn't necessarily like pain. It wasn't as low as like a 2, where something like a heating pad would make it feel better. Like you definitely wanted the pain medication. And then the more that I would move around, the more contractions that you have, like after birth with nursing and things like that, you get these contractions, the pain would like spike up for a moment. It would spike up to like a 6 or a 7 or an 8 sometimes, and then it would kind of drop back down once the like whatever I had done, whenever that stopped. The more that it would spike, it wouldn't come all the way back down. So sometimes it would like spike up to like a 7 and then come down a little bit and like spike up to like an 8 and like come down a little bit. Then I would be kind of at like a 6 from that point, and then maybe we would want like the Norco to bring it back down to like a 4. It's just nice that there's different options for pain medication just depending on like where you were in the recovery process. About day 2, which is maybe, it was just like hour like 24 through hour like 48 after delivery. That is definitely the hardest day of recovery. Like I said, that's when you're starting to walk around, when you're starting to do nursing, so you get the contractions in your uterus. You're getting gas pains, you're walking a lot more, you're going to the bathroom a lot more and using those muscles. And so there's a lot of things that really just can like drive up the pain a little bit, as well as you're getting less sleep. Night number 2, baby second night, is definitely always the roughest as they're kind of adjusting to the world. So you're dealing with that at the same time. So how long did I have to stay? So for a C-section, my hospital said that you could stay between 3 or 4 days. We usually go home in 4 days. So our C-sections have been on Tuesdays and we go home on Friday. Generally the earliest that they would have you go home, and that's about the point where I would be feeling better and ready for it. Any sooner than that, you're kind of right in the height of the pain, right in the height of your bleeding, and you still want that bed with the buttons where you could raise your head. So it isn't until the day 4 when I really felt I was more comfortable able to move around my home without the assistance. For my first daughter, we were actually in the hospital for a week, so we stayed there a little bit longer. She had to go to the NICU, and so she was a patient for longer, and they let me stay as a patient in the hospital for a little bit longer as well, so we could be discharged together. Different circumstances, you might have to stay a little bit longer. There are also some things that they do that I know are kind of universal regardless of what type of birth that you have. You know, they do the baby's footprints, and at the same time, they do offer the vaccines if that's something that you're interested in. He got all of his vaccines, vitamin K. They go through the safety protocol where they put the little bracelets on their legs, and then mom and dad get a bracelets as well to where the numbers match up. And so they tell you, you know, your baby stays with you the whole time. The only people who are allowed with your baby have like a special badge. You could also do like placenta donations if that's something that you're interested in. You know, everybody gets an IV, everybody gets the newborn screening tests. Our hospital had 4 different tests that he had to pass before he was allowed to leave. The jaundice test, the hearing test. I think there's a like a heart ECG kind of like heart test as well. So every baby, regardless, would get the same procedures. So there's a lot of things that are the same, and then there are definitely a lot of things that are different. Once you're in the mother baby, all of the nurses are the same, all of the, you know, food and room service and things like that, all of that's the same. So it's just how you're healing and how you're recovering that's different. And there's one thing that I can come away with after having 4 C-sections, and it is crazy to think that I've had that many, and I'm just like, that is definitely an experience that not every mom has. But I can say that every pregnancy is different, every birth is different, every C-section is different, every delivery is different, every baby is different. So even though I have had these 4 surgeries, every surgery was different. The baby that I got from is different, my recovery was different. And in some ways I feel like that's how my body is, because I am older now than I was when I had my first. I am now 6 years older. I had 3 previous C-sections, and so there are different risks that come along with that. But I also have 3 kids at home that now I have to handle that in my postpartum recovery, which was not something I had to handle with when I had my first. There are potential complications with every birth, you know, maybe a NICU stay, maybe having jaundice, having different, maybe like a bleeding, excessive bleeding, whatever it may be. There are definitely complications that can come out of it. So I encourage you to continue watching videos like this and hearing stories from other moms about their birth stories, their positive births, C-sections versus natural versus hospital births. and just continue learning and preparing for all the different options of what could happen. And so that way, when you're going through birth, you are aware of all the different outcomes and can make decisions based on that experience from these other moms. But I want you to remember that each birth story is unique and beautiful, and that it's so wonderful no matter how you welcome a new baby into your family. It is such a wonderful experience, and that it's gonna be a great day.